Thailand opposition moves ahead in upcoming election. Turkey's President Erdogan will likely face a runoff. EU and US to pledge joint action against China. Zelenskyy makes surprise visit to Paris. Fired ByteDance exec says China exerted supreme data control. Islamic Jihad agrees on Gaza truce with Israel. Modi's party loses swing state ahead of 2024 national election. 4 Russian military aircraft shot down near Ukraine simultaneously.
Hello, I'm Amber. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It is Monday, May 15th, and here are your top stories. Thailand's political opposition looked on course for a huge win in Sunday's election, as voters turned out in force behind 2 parties, promising big changes and an end to a decade of a conservative government led or backed by the military. The Liberal Move Forward Party and the FUNDAY Party surged ahead with more than 90% of the votes counted. As of early in the morning of May 15th, the Move Forward Party took 113 constituency seats out of 400, while the FUNDAY won 112 seats.
The Liberal Party won 81 seats on its maiden outing at the polls, delivering the second-best performance by an opposition party then.
The leader of the Move Forward Party, Pita Limjaroenrat, vowed to stay true to his party's values when forming a government. He said he remained open to an alliance with FUNDAY, but he added, "If Move Forward comes in first, we will form a government and I will be prime minister." However, the opposition parties will need to strike deals with members of a junta-appointed Senate that sided with military parties and get to vote on who becomes prime minister and form a government.
Voter support for Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan dipped below the majority required to win re-election outright with the ballot count nearly completed Sunday, making a May 28th runoff presidential election more likely. According to the state-run Anadolu agency, with almost 91% of ballot boxes counted, Erdogan had 49.9% of the vote. Opposition leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu had 44.4%. If neither candidate secures more than 50%, the two will compete in a runoff vote in 2 weeks.
Symbolism matters in these elections. So look at where the 2 men vying to lead Turkey chose to close their campaigns.
Erdogan has governed Turkey for 2 decades. In the run-up to the election, opinion surveys had indicated the increasingly authoritarian leader narrowly trailed his challenger. With the partial results showing otherwise, members of Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu's center-left, pro-secular Republican People's Party, or CHP, disputed Anadolu's numbers, contending that the state-run agency was biased in Erdogan's favor. However, the opposition-leaning Anka news agency reported Erdogan had 49% while Kılıçdaroğlu had 45%.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, European Commission Vice President Margrethe Vestager, and other senior officials are due to meet for the 4th edition of the EU-US Trade and Technology Council in Luleå, Sweden, on May 30th to 31st. According to Reuters, a draft statement showed Washington and the EU will pledge joint action to tackle concerns focused on China about non-market practices and coordinate their export controls on semiconductors and other goods at the meeting. The 2 sides were committed to working with the G7 to coordinate action to counteract acts of economic coercion.
These kind of arrangements are going to help us secure more diverse and resilient supply chains.
Brussels says it considers China an economic partner in certain fields, an economic competitor in others, as well as a strategic rival. The European Union plans to recalibrate its China policy, recognizing that coordination with a more hawkish United States is essential. The 2 sides also said they were committed to working with the G7 to coordinate action to counteract economic coercion, such as the trade restrictions the EU says China has imposed on EU member Lithuania. They also aim to cooperate on efforts to counter foreign manipulation of information.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy made a surprise visit to Paris for talks Sunday night with French President Emmanuel Macron, extending a multi-stop European tour that has elicited fresh pledges of military support as his country gears up for a counter-offensive against Russian occupation forces. In a tweet on his arrival, Zelenskyy said, "With each visit, Ukraine's defense and offensive capabilities are expanding. The ties with Europe are getting stronger, and the pressure on Russia is growing."
Zelenskyy said he and Macron will talk through the most important points of bilateral relations. The French leader's office said they'll discuss Ukraine's military and humanitarian needs and the more long-term perspectives for a return to peace in Europe, and that Macron will reaffirm France and Europe's unwavering support for Ukraine in its fight against the Russian invasion. Since last Saturday, Zelenskyy has met with Pope Francis, Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni, and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz.
I always needed time on my own. I never thought I could be there.
I take your blessings with your heartaches too. It's so easy and so wonderful to know it's you.
学习，一切从今天开始。Funday 英语。
A former executive at TikTok parent ByteDance Inc. said in a lawsuit that the Chinese Communist Party had a special office within the company that gave it supreme access to all data, a backdoor channel that he said persisted even after U.S. user data was walled off from individual engineers in China. In a complaint filed last Friday in California State Court, Intao Roger Yu said he was terminated from his job as head of engineering in the U.S. in retaliation for his complaints to supervisors about brazenly unlawful conduct at the company.
Yu alleges his bosses were dismissive when he voiced concern that ByteDance was stealing copyrighted content from other platforms including Instagram and Snapchat, as well as fabricating users to exaggerate its metrics and help China's Communist Party spread propaganda to a larger audience. Yu alleges the company was driven by a culture of lawlessness that focused on growth at all costs. Yu said it was known within the company that a special government-controlled committee had a significant role.
A truce between Israel and the militant group Islamic Jihad officially came into effect late last Saturday night, with an Egyptian-mediated ceasefire agreement meant to end the worst episode of cross-border fire since a 10-day war in 2021. A senior Islamic Jihad leader said Egyptian-led negotiations have produced an agreement with Israel to end a military conflict that began earlier last week. The U.S. welcomed the ceasefire pact and commended Egypt's crucial role in its mediation.
Reuters reported that the agreement said, in light of the agreement of the Palestinian and the Israeli side, Egypt announces a ceasefire between the Palestinian and the Israeli sides has been reached. The two sides will abide by the ceasefire, which will include an end to targeting civilians, house demolition, and an end to targeting individuals immediately when the ceasefire goes into effect. Israel's national security advisor thanked Egypt's efforts. Islamic Jihad also confirmed the agreement.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi conceded a loss in the key southern state of Karnataka to the opposition Indian National Congress, a result that indicates a tough fight for his party as it looks to win a third term in national elections next year. According to the Election Commission of India, Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party won 56 seats in the 224-member assembly, and Rahul Gandhi's Congress Party won 123 seats, well past the majority mark.
Bloomberg said the outcome in Karnataka, home to the country's IT hub of Bengaluru, is a boost for the Congress and could set the tone for the 2024 general election. The last two national polls indicated issues like high inflation and unemployment are hurting Modi's party. In Karnataka, the face-off was between Modi and Gandhi, the scion of India's famous Nehru-Gandhi political dynasty. The results are also an indication that Gandhi's constant public outreach is making an impression on voters.
Russian news outlet Kommersant said 2 Russian fighter jets and 2 military helicopters had been shot down last Saturday close to the Ukrainian border in what would be a spectacular coup for Kyiv if confirmed. Kommersant said on its website that the Su-34 fighter bomber, Su-35 fighter and 2 Mi-8 helicopters had made up a raiding party and had been shot down almost simultaneously in an ambush in the Bryansk region adjoining northeast Ukraine.
A video posted on the Russian pro-war Telegram channel Voyeny Ozvedomitel showed a helicopter high in the sky suffering an explosion, being thrown off course and then plunging towards the ground in flames. Voyeny Ozvedomitel said it appeared that, most likely, the enemy staged an ambush with air defenses previously transferred to a border zone close enough to hit our group. In a Twitter post, a senior advisor to the Ukrainian president called the incident justice and instant karma.
Now let's take a look at the vocabulary of the news of ByteDance data control. Number 1, supreme, 级别或地位最高的，至高无上的。It is an event in which she reigns supreme. 这个比赛专案它所向无敌。Number 2, terminate, 使停止、结束或终止。The agreement was terminated immediately. 那项协议立即被终止了。Number 3, file a complaint or lawsuit, 提出申诉或是诉讼。It sounds like you got a raw deal. Maybe you should file a complaint with the Consumer Protection Agency. 看来是你受到不公平待遇了，你可以向消费者权益保护机构投诉。And that's all for today's Funday news. Be sure to tune into Funday news from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Amber, your host. I'll see you next time.